together into the stretch, and Destin has taken the lead in the Belmont Stakes. Stradivari is there. Governor Malibu couldn't get through on the inside. He is in traffic. Exaggerator. Here comes Lonnie on the far outside, and Creator is coming too. It is Destin in front. Creator, Lonnie on the outside. Destin and Creator. These two come down to the line together. Too close to goal.
Welcome to the Paddock Pass with Brian Mariano on 104.5 The Team.
What a weekend in horse racing, ladies and gentlemen. I was lucky enough to be in attendance this past Saturday for the Belmont Stakes. Unfortunately for me, the photo did not go towards Destin. It went towards Steve Asmussen-trained Creator, and was lucky enough and smart enough to put in the rabbit, quote-unquote, of Gettysburg to set up for that horse. Great run, great ride by Irad Ortiz Jr., ends up being your 148th Belmont Stakes champion. Again, we have a great show for you this week. We are joined by TVG analyst Simon Bray. He's going to break down all the races you saw this past weekend at Belmont Park. We are also going to be joined by the Senior Vice President of Programming for Fox Sports to talk about the new deal Fox Sports signed with Naira this past week. That'll be a great interview. Make sure you stay tuned for that. But, of course, we are going to go over this past weekend at Belmont Park. I was lucky enough to be in attendance, but I was lucky enough to also have one of the worst stories you could possibly think of. And unfortunately for me, it netted me with no money in my pocket. I was lucky enough to go up and talk with a few guys that I know over at TVG, friends of the program, Todd Schrupp and Simon Bray that you'll hear later in the program. And as I was walking back, it was the sixth race, the Jaipur Invitational. And as we talked with Andy Serling last week, I was texting him and found out he liked the 12-horse Pure Sensation. And, of course, I, at handicapping the race, was in love with the 2, 3, and 5. As I went up to go and get a voucher to go play in the machine, I noticed the race was about to go off. I unfortunately did not have time to go play the 2, 3, 5, and 12 exacta box that I wanted. The 12 wires the field at 19-1. The 5 runs second at 18-1. And, of course, I begin to start crying into my hands. I went down with a few friends of mine, went and showed them the tweet that I tweeted out. I tweeted out the winning superfecta that paid almost $5,000 for 10 cents, and I unfortunately had nothing on it. It was a long week here at the station to hear it from Levac and Wolf and most of the guys here. It was a long day to even hear it from some of the friends that I went with down to Belmont Park. But again, hopefully that'll set me up for this summer at Saratoga, and hopefully the racing gods will bring that back to me this summer. This is, of course, the Paddock Pass. Thank you for joining me this week. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter, as I was tweeting all day at Belmont Park at 104.5 Mariano. And get the conversation started, guys. A lot of these podcasts, I want to be able to talk with you guys. If something you like, if you don't like, get a hold of me, and we'll be able to get that on the program or take it off the program if you want or not want to hear something else. This past weekend, the Belmont Stakes, I was all over Destin from the beginning of the week and even on when Gettysburg got in. I thought the horse was going to have first run, which he did. I thought it was a really good ride by Castellano. And unfortunately for my tickets and some of the others of you out there that had Destin, we just got caught at the wire. And the 1.5 mile distance really took its toll on a lot, especially the favorite Exaggerator running for a third time in 5 weeks. It really took a toll on him. And as much as I wanted to go off of Kent DeSormo and what he was doing and not doing with the horse as we were watching the race, being 4 wide on both turns, I can't really blame Kent DeSormo for this. I just don't think the horse had anything left. It really is unfortunate because the horse is a very good horse, and I'm still skeptical in a way because as I talked to Todd Schrupp before the Preakness as well, the horse seems to be a mud specialist, and until he can prove to me that he can win a big Grade 1 race on a dry racetrack, I will still feel that way. And hopefully we'll ask Simon Bray what he feels about it, and maybe we'll be able to see the rematch of Nyquist and Exaggerator at Saratoga this summer. I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping it doesn't rain, so it's one of those fair racetracks. Again, we can go back to Kentucky when it rained a little bit before the race. Nyquist wins that race. We will go to the Preakness when obviously it was very muddy. Exaggerator wins that one. but this should be the one once and for all. Hopefully we're all lucky enough to attend on Travers Day this year, where we will probably get the rematch of Nyquist and Exaggerator. The Paddock Pass here every week. You can join us every Friday. There will be a new episode. And, of course, during the Saratoga meet, I will be up there every day live tweeting and making sure that you're ready to go to the window with all the winning selections. The Paddock Pass will be on Tuesdays during the Saratoga meet. Obviously, being the off day, we'll be able to recap all the weekend's races. And don't forget, every Friday, I will be on with Levac and Wolf as we will update all the picks and selections on Fridays as well. Looking forward to the big racing days on Saturday and Sunday. Of course, the Belmont wasn't the only big race this weekend. Frosted ran a absolutely stunning Met Mile, just a tick off the track record, and I believe it was a new stakes record. But I believe as we watched most of the day, the track was really fast. It seemed like even if you were anywhere close to the pace, you were going to be able to close and have a nice finish in the last eighth of a mile. It was unbelievable to see him pull away the way that he did. The question I do have, and I will ask this again to Simon Bray later in the podcast, was it a product of how good Frosted is, or is it a product of how bad that field really was? I tried to beat Frosted, dumb enough as I was. I didn't like the price of 2-1, but he obviously proved me wrong. But my question is going to be, will it, when he stretches back out, is he going to run the same type of race? Of course, he chased American Pharoah around all last season. I'm really wondering now if he is as good as some of these older horses that he will face in hopefully at Saratoga and probably in the Breeders' Cup Classic, which is turning out to be a doozy depending on who's healthy when late October, early November comes around. A lot of these horses should be really, really good. Again, the Met Mile was good. Chad Brown looks phenomenal, winning 4 races on Saturday, but the one that stood out had to be in the Manhattan with Flintshire. That horse is by far one of the best turf horses I've seen, and we'll get to another one in a few minutes. But Flintshire absolutely dominated that field. Only won by about 2 lengths, but it could have been more. And as you see in many turf races, you don't see a lot of wide margins where they win by 10, 11 lengths. You'll see a lot of ones, even when Wise Dan used to run, which we will get to in the Wise Dan Stakes that's this weekend at Churchill Downs. He never really won by 8, 9 lengths. He won by a length or 2, but it was with ease as they crossed the wire. Wasn't really asked by his jockey at all. So I was very impressed by Flintshire. I think by far one of the best horses, turf horses in North America, maybe one of the best horses as well. But I'm really interested to see where Chad wants to go with this one. If we go back to the Sword Dancer again at Saratoga, if we will see this horse again in the Breeders' Cup Turf this year. This, of course, is the Paddock Pass. Hit me up on Twitter at 1045Mariano. On Facebook, comment below if there's anything you want to talk about, anything you want mentioned on the program. The one thing I'm going to settle this weekend was I'm not sure how good this 3-year-old crop is yet. Obviously, Exaggerator didn't show up. It was a great race by Creator, but the 3-year-old class seems to be really wide open for the taking right now, and I'm assuming we're going to see a lot of changes as the summer goes on, which is going to make for great racing and great betting opportunities at Saratoga this summer. We'll move on to this weekend where Churchill Downs seems to be the place to be. The Wise Dan Stakes is race 7, and this is going to be a later post time. A lot of these are going to be under the lights at Churchill Downs. Race 7 on the program, approximate post time at 9:05, and this is the return of the Pizza Man coming in to the Wise Dan Stakes, a mile and a 16th on the turf, and this is where I think the Pizza Man will show up and dominate this race. Florent Giroux leaving Belmont, going down there to ride this weekend. This horse, I think, is just too good for this field. I think he will dominate, and I don't think you're going to get a great price. I'm assuming 3 to 5, 4 to 5, something like that. But if you're playing, pick 3s that start in that race, pick 4s that are before that, I would definitely, this would be a single for me. The Pizza Man, I think, jogs in this race at probably a 3 to 5 to 4 or 5 price. The one that you want to look at is the race right after, this Grade 1 Stephen Foster, where second place in the Breeders' Cup Classic to American Pharoah last year, FNX comes back for Jimmy Jerkins and Gary Stevens. He's even money on the morning line. Honestly, I don't know if you're going to get even money again. You're probably looking at 3 to 5, 4 to 5 as well. I'm going to actually look towards the outside for a possible upset here for Brian Hernandez in the horse Eagle. I like this horse's last few races, been pretty good competition, and I think he'll be a price that I would like to play. I'm not going to go ahead and pencil in FNX as a easy winner here, but if you're playing doubles, obviously pick threes, and that is the start of a late pick 4. I would not single FNX. I will use the 7 Eagle as well in those later races. Moving on to what was a dominant performance over at Royal Ascot, Tepin, and I can't believe you got Tepin at 3-1. My buddy Dom Clemens said he had 20 to win on, and that is an absolute steal at 3-1, winning the Queen Anne Stakes at Royal Ascot. That is an impressive win. By far the best turf miler going in the world right now, and hopefully we'll be lucky enough to see her again as she comes back across the pond to run. I'm hoping he comes to Saratoga, but I highly doubt it. We'll probably see her in some sort of prep for the Breeders' Cup Classic, maybe the Woodbine Mile, something in that sort to wear. But Tepin winning at Royal Ascot is a massive win for her, and I'm assuming that this horse is going to win the Breeders' Cup Mile, a turf mile again this year. Very impressive, and for all of you that had the 3-1, you couldn't ask for a better price on one of the best horses in the world. So I commend you on that. Very well done. And I'm really kind of ticked off that I missed on the 3-1 bag win. I don't think you'll get 3-1 ever again on Tepin. But congratulations to the connections, Tepin, and winning across the pond at Royal Ascot in the Queen Anne Stakes. This, of course, is the Paddock Pass. I appreciate you joining me for this episode, and we are lucky enough now to be joined by the Senior Vice President of Programming for Fox Sports, Mike Mulvihill. Mike, I appreciate you giving me the time, man. How are you?
I'm terrific. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. Now, Fox and NYRA just have signed one of the most lucrative deals in horse racing history for the summer at Saratoga. Tell me, how did this deal get done, and really, what does it entail?
Well, what it entails is daily programming during the Saratoga meet. So we will do 40 shows, totaling over 80 hours of programming. And I don't know that I would exactly call it one of the most lucrative deals in racing history, but it's certainly one of the most extensive in terms of the programming commitment from our side. I don't think there's ever been a meet that has had a national daily show from start to finish through the meet. I think historically racing has been pretty fortunate to be able to get just weekend coverage of a major Saturday stakes race. And you try to build consistency on the Saturdays, but to actually have day in, day out consistency through an entire meet is really unprecedented, and I don't think there's a better meet to showcase than Saratoga.
So, Mike, what exactly is the format going to be? Is it always going to be showing a specific time frame? Is it going to vary a little bit? What exactly does that entail?
Yeah, it will vary slightly. It's going to be late afternoon windows, so some days we'll be on at 4:30, some days we'll be on at 5 o'clock. I can't promise that it will be exactly the same start and end time every day, but for people who are fans and consistently tune in, you'll be able to tune into FS2 late afternoon and know that you're going to see a stakes race basically every day in that late afternoon time period.
Now, Mike, we have networks out there like TVG, and locally we have the off-track betting. What's going to make the Fox broadcast a little bit different than these?
Well, I think partly what will make it a little bit different, and I hope a little bit more fun for the viewer, is that NYRA, to their great credit, has invested a lot of resources in the production of their on-track signal. So this is the same signal that you would see if you were playing the races as a handicapper at a simulcast facility, or you would see it on the track if you were there in person. They've really decided to invest in making that a TV quality production. If you're a horse player yourself, and if you've been around Saratoga, you know that traditionally those feeds that the tracks produce, they're pretty minimalist. There aren't a lot of bells and whistles there. And Tony Olivado, who now runs media for the New York Racing Association, has convinced the powers that be over there that they really need to invest in making this a TV quality show. And so they're investing in production enhancements. They've invested in talent. They've already announced some of the talent that will be on their shows. There are 2 more announcements to come, and I won't step on NYRA's announcements. They'll make those when they're ready to. But I think that by the time these shows hit the air, it's going to be a level of production quality that we haven't previously seen in horse racing outside of the Triple Crown. and it's going to be a level of quality and talent, a team of, I believe, 6 people that really are going to be people that I think viewers want to spend their time with every day. You know, when I think about horse racing talent, this isn't the first time that we've done racing. I always think in terms of, are these people that I personally would want to go to the races with? Are these people that I would like to spend a day at Saratoga with? And when the final announcements for our talent are made, I think it's going to be a group that anybody would enjoy going to the races with these people. It's really going to be a solid group top to bottom.
So with this summer being, you know, the highlight of the NYRA year being at Saratoga, were there any discussions of maybe doing the entire card, or were you guys always set on the 2 to 2.5 hour time frame?
No, it always focused on stakes races and on the highest quality races for every given day. I think that the commitment that NYRA has made and that we've made to them just to be able to get over 80 hours of programming on is extraordinary. And to try to do it even bigger than that would maybe be biting off a little bit more than we would take on in year one. You know, this is, as we said earlier, this is the most extensive deal ever done for a single meet. 80 hours is an enormous amount for Tony and his team to produce, and I think it's the right amount. You know, I don't think we need to be any more ambitious than that right now.
Now, I know Fox is coming a long way when you guys launched Fox Sports 1 and now Fox Sports 2, adding the UFC. Now you have U.S. Open Golf as well. Long term, is Fox going to try and compete with like NBC for Triple Crown coverage and maybe even the Breeders' Cup as well?
Well, you know, I've got to give NBC credit, and I don't know that it was a reaction to us getting a little bit involved in horse racing. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but they've really stepped up in the last 2 years and lengthened their commitments to the Triple Crown races and to the Breeders' Cup. I think all 3 Triple Crown races are now locked into 10-year deals. And the Breeders' Cup is, I think, in a similar situation. So as much as I would love for us to have an opportunity to go after those marquee events in horse racing, it's going to be a long time before we have an opportunity to sit down and talk about that. And so to focus on, you know, the premier meets in racing it's probably our best avenue right now.
Senior Vice President of Programming for Fox Sports, Mike Mulvihill, joins us on the phone. I appreciate you, Mike, giving us the time. I know you have a crazy schedule going on now, but I appreciate you giving us 5 minutes to talk about this great deal, and maybe we can catch up with you during the Saratoga meet as well.
I appreciate your interest. I can't wait for Saratoga. It's always a highlight of my year, and can't wait to see everybody out there.
1045theteam.com, joined on the phone by horse racing analyst from TVG, Simon Bray. Follow him on Twitter at SimonTVG. Now, Simon, the Belmont this past weekend, Exaggerator finished 11th as a 6-5 favorite. What was the reason for that? Do you take a bad ride? Do you take a bad trip? What exactly was the reason for that?
I don't think it was the ride. I think Kent DeZormo, I don't think he gave the horse a bad ride. I just think he was a tired horse at the end of a long Triple Crown campaign. His workout, there was some talk about his workout, his final workout leading into the Belmont, how it didn't look that great. I went back and looked at it, and there were some big question marks there. I mean, he was drifting out. He didn't switch leads correctly. His tail was kind of hanging out behind him. He didn't look smooth down the lane. So I think there were more issues than just a bad ride or track condition. I think he was just a tired racehorse, probably needs a little break.
So I met up with you earlier in the day on Saturday and expressed my love for Destin. Obviously, I wasn't really happy with that photo, but how impressed were you with the race that Destin ran on Saturday?
He ran a tremendous race. I mean, he was attending the pace, such a lightly raced colt. Pletcher's had such good success. Well, I wouldn't say success. His horses have run well in the Belmont. Of course, he won with Rags to Riches, but he's had a lot of near misses. Destin's, I think, a 3-year-old to watch in the second half of the year. And the horse who had the unlucky trip in the Belmont was Governor Malibu. I don't know whether he would have won, but he would have been a lot closer. He was steadied repeatedly through the final 16. And he's another horse who was lightly raced. He ran so well in the Peter Pan. And keep an eye on him at Saratoga as well. He's a horse with a big future, Governor Malibu.
So Asmussen didn't come out and say that Gettysburg was a rabbit for Creator, but do you believe that Creator wins that race if Gettysburg isn't entered at all?
It's a very good question. I think it was a tactical move. Look, the pace wasn't that swift. Gettysburg did his job. Probably no Gettysburg. See what happens when there's no pace? It brings everybody into the race. The field gets a little more compact. So if there's no pace, maybe Creator, is laying a little closer. I don't know. I thought he ran well. I mean, there's so many variables without Gettysburg in there. I don't know whether Governor Malibu would have won. Destin might have held on, but I think the connections from that standpoint make the right move putting Gettysburg in there. They ensured, I wouldn't say it was a fast pace, it was a legitimate pace and something for a creator to close into. But look, he needed every inch of that mile and a half to get the victory. I'm not taking anything away from his performance, but, he won that race right on the wire.
Horse racing analyst for TVG, Simon Bray. You can follow him on Twitter at SimonTVG. Now, Simon, this weekend, newly acquired for local trainer Chad Brown Flintshire, put up a breathtaking performance in the Manhattan. I know you love turf racing, Simon, but is he the best turf horse in the world right now?
I don't know whether he's the best in the world. Look, I got to hand it to Juddmonte Farms, because in years gone by, this horse might have been retired to stud in Europe. They brought him over here. He's made a couple of trips to the United States. He was second in the Breeders' Cup. He won the Sword Dancer last year. And the middle distance turf division across North America is very weak, and it was crying out for a superstar. And this is a horse who was, he ran against the best in Europe. He was second behind Trav. He was second in the arc behind Golden Horn. It makes him a powerhouse hit. There's no question he's the best turf horse in North America, hands down right now. The final time, I think he came home with his final quarter of a mile in 22 and change, which is very, very fast. For those not familiar with horse racing, if you're going sub 24 the last quarter of a turf race, you're really rolling home. And he was 22 and change, legitimate finishing time. And he likes firm ground. That's why he's over here. So he'll get that if they campaign him throughout the U.S. throughout the summer, hopefully. And look, with Golden Horn on the sidelines, Trev gone on the sidelines. To go back to your question, yeah, he's one of the top turf horses in the world. I would agree with that.
So from one great performance to another, Frosted blows him away in the Met Mile. But in this race, was that a case of Frosted being that good, or that his competition in this race wasn't that good?
I don't want to take anything away from his performance. It was an eye-watering performance. Just outstanding. I can't. The last Met Mile winner I've seen like that was probably, compare him to Ghost Sapper. The times were quick, but the times were quick all day long. It was a typical big day racetrack. The times were fast. I just don't think the group he was facing was that stellar. It wasn't the deepest Met Mile field, but it puts the Dubai curse behind us. I've never believed in that. Shipping a horse to Dubai, they never the same. That's hogwash to me. I don't believe that. So I think the return to 1 mile is key. I like the one-turn mile. He's not going to get that opportunity probably until the fall again at Aqueduct in the Cigar Mile. But I like the fact he's shortened up a little bit. But I think a combination of that and a weak group behind him gave him an exaggerated winning performance.
All right, Simon, we're so close to Saratoga. With the Travers being the big race of the Saratoga meet, a lot of talk has been going around. Will we see a rematch of Nyquist and Exaggerator and the Travers up here in Saratoga?
I think we would. Keith Desormeaux has already said that he's going to point Exaggerator to Saratoga. And then Nyquist, look, there's talk about him staying out here for the TVG Pacific Classic, but that's against older horses. 3-year-olds do get a favorable weight break in there, and they've had a good track record in there. But I definitely could see a rematch. Look, he's been on the sidelines with the fever. He's back in training now, speaking about Nyquist. And I think that's what fans want to see. It will put the debate to sleep between that Nyquist-Exaggerator matchup, which we saw in the first two jewels of the Triple Crown. And I like to see that continue up in the Travers. I think that'll happen.
All right, Simon, we'll get you out of here on this. Obviously, Tepin went overseas and ran at Royal Ascot. How impressed were you with her performance?
Tremendous performance. She overcame a lot. They were talking about no Lasix, no nasal strips. She won the Breeders' Cup Mile last year. She's one of the best turf milers in the world. The French horse Solo didn't make it. He was on the sidelines, highly regarded. But you can put her up there in terms of Goldikova and Mies. There's no question about that. The Queen Anne is a very prestigious race. Always run the first race of the Royal Meeting at Ascot. And, she did it the right way. She's a tremendous, tremendous racehorse. And the word is, I talked to the Cassie camp, they're going to look at the Woodbine Mile in September, another one-turn mile, and run her there en route to the Breeders' Cup Mile again.
Simon Bray, horse racing analyst for TVG. Again, you can follow him on Twitter at SimonTVG. Simon, I really appreciate you giving me the time, man. I know it's early over there in California, but I appreciate you giving me the time and reliving this wonderful weekend at Belmont Park.
Anytime, Brian. Pleasure to be on, and our great sport of horse racing, man. Continue, and hopefully catch up with you in Saratoga.